Welcome to this episode of Talking Development. Today I'm joined by two tireless advocates for the most vulnerable who have dedicated their careers to working in countries affected by fragility, conflict, and violence. Sokaina Khan is the director of the Fragility, Conflict, and Violence Group here at the World Bank. And prior to this role, she was the World Bank country director for Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Chad, based in Bamako, Mali. This region, one of the world's most fragile, has recently experienced a series of coups, further fueling instability across Sahelian Africa. And Christina Svensson is the World Bank country manager for Somalia, a country once considered a failed state, where the bank is helping pave the way for a more stable and sustainable future. Prior to this role, she was based in Guinea-Bissau, also one of the most fragile countries in the world. Consider this. By 2030, we expect 60% of the world's extreme poor to live in countries affected by fragility. Violent conflicts are at an all-time high, and we're facing one of the largest forced displacement crises ever recorded. Today, we will discuss how the World Bank's efforts in tackling fragility, conflict, and violence, a global challenge of massive proportions, can be handled. Thank you both for joining me. And I'm actually going to start with you, Sokaina. We were at the board yesterday discussing the midterm review of the World Bank's Fragility, Conflict, and Violence Strategy. And it was introduced in 2020. We're sort of 3 years into it. And it's been quite a tumultuous 3 years. And I wanted to ask you, what do you feel are some of the lessons that we've learned? What has worked, and where have we made some progress, and what really remains to be done and is proving to be more difficult?
Thank you very much, Anna. As you said, extreme poverty is increasing in FCS countries. So our impact in FCS is central to Bank's agenda. The main lessons are the following. First, on remaining engaged, we have shown that the bank can remain engaged even in the most difficult environment. Afghanistan, South Sudan, Somalia, Sudan. How can we do that? Thanks to partnership. We partner with the UN, UNICEF, WFP. So we do remain engaged, and we can support the most vulnerable people to make sure that we do not lose hard-won development gains, and that as well we attend to their needs when you don't have a functional government. The second message is on prevention. Obviously, the bank cannot prevent coups in conflict, but we have a package that allows us to support countries that are willing to work on prevention agenda before conflict escalate through diagnostic, such as risk and resilience assessment, financial toolkits, such as the prevention resilience allocation and the turnaround allocation. What we have learned in terms of prevention is that we need to be faster, to be more upstream, and to expand our knowledge on prevention. The third message has to do with spillover effects. Fragility transcends borders. And we were together in Chad, in Adre, in the frontier with Sudan, and we saw the devastating impact of the war in Sudan for people displaced in Chad, while the people from Darfur are still living in Adre for the past 20 years. So the bank has been able, with partnership with UNHCR, for instance, to provide support to the displaced, forcibly displaced people. The fourth message has to do with private sector. We do need to continue to work on domestic private sector in particular. And One World Bank Group is fundamental, and we have already some great examples of collaboration and supporting private sector, domestic private sector, but we need to scale up because, as I said, in this context, time is not on our side.
Thank you so much, Sokaina. And the fact that we need to be quick to learn and to reassess when things need to go in a different direction, and to be humble to admit that we don't always have all the answers at the outset, but also to think about how are we nimble as an institution, because speed is of the essence. So complex, but so rewarding to be able to really contribute to make a difference. Thank you. Christina, I'm going to turn to you. And Somalia, of course, is a country going through transition. I actually had the pleasure of meeting some of your counterparts when I was in New York at the UN General Assembly last week. And they're, of course, working very hard to get through this transition period, but they're also facing some very challenging realities. One reality that stood out was that their domestic resource mobilization is very low at about 2.5%, which makes you wonder how will they be able to fuel and finance development. And the second thing that stood out is that primary school enrollment is still very, very low. So in this challenging context, what is the role of the World Bank and what has it been leading up to this point?
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for having me. So Somalia has gone through really an extraordinary journey over the last 10 years since we started re-engaging in 2012, 2013. It is about to achieve HIPC completion point at the end of this calendar year.
So what does that mean for some of our viewers who may not be familiar with the acronym? What does that mean?
So HIPC means that they will receive full and irrevocable debt relief, and that their debt will go from being in high debt distress to close to 5% of GDP, meaning that they will be in moderate debt distress, at risk of debt distress. And this really shows the commitment of the Somali authorities, but also, again, building on what Sukaina said, the partnership that we have forged along the way, because it's an enormous effort to make sure that the IMF, ourselves, international partners support them along the way, because the capacity is still so extremely weak in Somalia. But even if they achieve this important milestone, it doesn't mean that they are out of fragility. It's still an extremely fragile country. As you mentioned, the revenues are 2.5% of GDP. There's a raging conflict against the terrorist organization Al-Shabaab. The Somali government doesn't control much of the southern part of the country. There's a tension between a federal government and a centralist government. And this really makes it very challenging for us to operate. On top of that, of course, they have been hit by shock after shock. Last year, half of the population was dependent on humanitarian aid. It hadn't rained for close to 3 years. And there was famine conditions in certain areas of the country. But through all of this, we have remained engaged and really not only remained engaged, but we have scaled up our operations after they got access to IDA, which they did 3 years ago when they reached the HIPC decision point. And since then, initially, we supported them a lot with institutional strengthening, rebuilding the core functions of the state, rebuilding intergovernmental fiscal transfers. The last 3 years, we have really supported them both on starting to deliver services, education, as you mentioned, health, social protection, which has been quite successful. And today, we're delivering actually cash transfers to close to 4 million people in Somalia through a government-run, but in partnership with WFP, social safety net program. So we are working in, and again, an unsettled political environment, and our support is very important and very large compared to their own domestic revenues, right? So the potential impact and the potential of doing harm in some cases, even with a simple disbursement, can be is very acute.
You bring out a few things that I think are very interesting and quite unique to the setting you're working in. One is this, be okay with the fact that sometimes it's good to be slow, because you have to be very aware of the context that you're supporting and that you're investing in. And I think that is intuitively a bit odd, because you want to be fast in bad situations like this and where the humanitarian situation is like it is, but that judgment has to be there. The other thing is, of course, the cost of doing business in these environments can be very prohibitive, and it's something we need to come to terms with. But I also wanted to just ask you, is there one project that you just are super proud of in Somalia, and that you sort of, when you think about everything we've done, this one stands out?
Yeah, I mean, it's really the whole country team, right? We're all working together. But if I would highlight one project, it would be the social safety net program. So this is a country that has been completely dependent on humanitarian aid, and is today trying to pivot, right, towards development. And this program provides a core group of beneficiaries, 200,000 households with regular cash transfers, and then it also has a window where we can top up, and where partners, humanitarian partners, ECHO for example, tops up these emergency cash transfers. And again, we were able to reach close to 1/3 of the population with these cash transfers during a really difficult time during this drought over the last year. And at the same time, we're supporting them to build up the systems for this to become a national social safety net program. So we're building a unified social registry. We're supporting them on doing the first digital ID. So today only 10% of the population have access to ID, and today again we are supporting them with getting this national ID in place. So that I'm really proud of, and I think that will make a huge difference going forward and support again the country to pivot towards development efforts.
Wonderful, and it's so foundational. So really, really good to hear from you on that. Well, I think you are both amazing in the work that you do. I really want to thank you, and I want to encourage you to keep up the really good work and count on my support too. So thank you so much. I'm really delighted that you were with me on this episode of Talking Development. Thank you. Let me highlight 3 takeaways from the discussion we just had. First, in today's world, the lines between humanitarian and development assistance are becoming blurry. What that means is that saving lives and building sustainable livelihoods need to go hand in hand. Second, we must adapt to the new reality, rethink our delivery models, and strengthen partnerships, both old and new, with different stakeholders, including the domestic private sector, to maximize our impact. And third, investing in prevention and resilience is key, but we need to find new ways to anticipate challenges earlier and better by expanding diagnostics and engaging countries quicker. As we go forward into the annual meetings and beyond, we must keep rising this agenda at international events and make sure the voice of the most vulnerable is heard. And at the same time, we need to continue discussing how we work in fragile settings and share our experiences. And I invite all of you to share success stories that can serve as an inspiration to other colleagues. This is it for today, but before I log off, I want to do a special thank you for all of the staff who work in FCS countries. This is such difficult and such important and absolute instrumental work. Thank you very much, and thank you for checking us out on this episode of Talking Development.